up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another exciting edition. We had so much fun last time on our Fight the Globe Discord event that we decided to run it back a second time. So, welcome to round 2 of Fight the Globe. Should be pretty interesting when we go ahead and dive right on in. I am going to need to go over to my display cap and we'll go ahead and dive right on in, as we said. So enjoy the back end view. Let's go ahead and hop on in. I'm going to mute up because they're waiting on us. So here we go.
Continents, I don't have any reason to refute. The distances don't actually work. The southern point-to-point distances don't work on that sort of projection. Coming back to the geodal long lat system that it employs, but I mean, like, if you want to get conspiratorial with it, we can say they're probably hiding a continent somewhere, right? Maybe it's just recently shallow, or like ocean maybe like reclaimed it. I know you're a Garthian dude. What about like Atlantis or Lemuria?
Well, yeah, I know. I personally know that they're hiding continent. Right? I've been there.
Yeah, it's in the center.
It's in the center of the earth. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's another area. You wouldn't understand.
Shane, I was just wanting to ask.
MrTribune is here, by the way. He's down.
Is Tribune here? Bring him on. I know the.
Because of how you said like the projection makes it warped or makes the continents warped. Do you think that do you have an accurate map that doesn't have distortion and that accurately not only depicts sizes of continents but also distances between them, especially on the southern, or what we call southern hemisphere, but south of the equator?
That's a fair question, dude. And like, probably no. Like, I don't have a perfect map that represents a non-geoidal or a non-spherical longitude lat system, because every map that gets made has to employ that same longitude latitude system. The GPS, the spherical, converging poles and converging longitudinal lines, that has to be used in every map according to even get a map patent. That's what's in the Gleason's patent. That's how all maps are made. It's dictated by the Royal Society. So to do that, we'd have to mark out new latitude lines across the earth, which we could do at like solstice, and we could mark it out across the whole flat earth, and then we could make our own map to do non-distorted distances. But that's the only way that I know of.
Can I also add before we move on?
Go ahead.
I'll just add on that. How do you know definitively, empirically, that your model is 100% accurate as far as the distances and land masses and continents?
So like, the main way we can just tell is distances, or it's like, as I was saying, just distances between 2 points. So I think a really easy way, like you had said, that you would need to make a map. So I think a pretty, at least easy to understand way to do it would simply just map or like calculate the distance around the outer circumference and then the inner circumference, or outer and inner on like a flat disk. So you would calculate, like, let's say like the Arctic Circle, and then a circle like all the way out on the edge, and then compare the distances. Is the one south much larger, like exponentially larger, or are they the same?
I have a graphic up if you look at the presentation.
I was scrambling, dude. I was scrambling.
Yeah, I got you, bro. Yeah, it's much bigger.
Where do I go to see the presentation?
The circumference south of the equator is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And so
you had said that it was.
And so to convert that, yeah.
So I'm trying to read your graphic here. Are these just the total square miles north and south of the equator?
Yep.
Is that what your map's showing? Because I was asking, does it show circumference? Because I can't find it, at least not.
It shows.
I cannot hear Mr.
The total circumference is at the top, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the total circumference on a globe, I believe, though. Let me check the map, because I'm on a phone, so it's kind of being buggy.
I'm gonna bow out and jump back in.
Yeah, on your
The southern hemisphere is too big? What do you mean? Like big in terms of surface area? Because on a globe, the surface area is actually smaller than it would be on a flat plane. Because the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere have pretty much exactly equal surface area, considering it's like two halves of a sphere. They'd be basically the same. So,
Well, if you use
you
the
mean
AE
by
map as like a model and you convert it, then this is the gift. This is the graphical representation that shows that it's exactly equal at equatorial diameter, square mileage. They'd have to. So the square mileage representing on a half of a southern hemisphere is like 98 million on the globe, and then an actual like flat Earth, it would be 147 million. So it's like one
Mhm.
third, right?
Yeah,
So,
so yeah, I
it's
understand what you're saying.
proportionally represented.
I'm saying, what if you went out and just actually measured it? Like measured, let's say the Arctic Circle, and then I don't know what it's called on the southern hemisphere, but something that would be equivalent on latitude line or whatever line you'd like to use. Just some circle that's the same, or it would be the same on a globe, and then compare the circumferences. Because on a flat disk, the circumferences get wider. It gets like they're all the circles slowly get larger and larger as you go out. So if we are actually on a flat plane, it would be pretty easy to say, okay, the circumference in the center is going to be much, much smaller than the circumference around the edge, just because of the nature of a disk. And it would also mean, my main question is, because of that, like I know a lot of flat earthers didn't used to kind of agree with it, but there are flights all the way around the southern hemisphere. And I had a point on my slideshow about it, but I won't bring it up. It's pretty complicated. But the distances of flight time going over these to completely surround, like to completely circle the southern, or the like a southern circle there, or circle around the southern hemisphere, you would have to go, I believe the number was 1,400 miles per hour from the like flight times, which is like almost double the sound barrier. So it doesn't really make sense in terms of like just planes in general. Like planes would, there's no commercial aircraft that can even break the sound barrier. So
Well, all these flight path questions, typically in my
Mhm.
experience, are like skewing the distances from a southern point to a southern point. Like what I said before about the A map, you can't actually measure southern point to southern point distances using that because it's all skewed with the wider grid lines and wider longitude the more
yeah,
south you go, right? So when you measure points like that, of course the distances get skewed. So if you're trying to use that as a scaled map to measure and then use like Google flight paths on a globe to superimpose the distance of it and then assume that it's like twice as long or half as long, that's like
yeah,
flawed from the start.
yeah. I completely understand that. The thing is just, it's just the nature of a disk. We don't have to even know the exact measurement. Just the nature of the disk would be that the like outer circle is much, much larger than the inner circle. So it doesn't really matter the exact distance. All you have to say is you can look at the shortest path on a globe and the shortest path what would be on a disk, and it doesn't have to be exact. Again, it's just that wide of a circumference, even on a flat disk. It doesn't matter how like stretched you get, it's still going to be wider than it is. It's still going to be a longer flight path than it would be on a globe, because as I said, like the nature of a disk, the more south you go, or the more south you would go on like a flat plane, the bigger it gets. So the distances are still expanded from how they are on a globe model.
Sir Aardvark, I mean, anybody can just make that vague claim like, oh, the flight paths are just longer. Can you name a very specific flight path that we can actually analyze? And then, even if we did,
absolutely.
how
So
would we able?
there is a flight from Sydney to Johannesburg. The flight path on a globe is about 6,297 miles, according to what they say. That's obviously just what they say, and that the flight time is about 14 hours, and you can get on this flight like it's a real flight, and that averages about 449 miles per hour, which is the average cruising speed, or close to the average cruising speed of a commercial aircraft. On at least the disk model that I used, it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be exact. But even with the latitude lines still being equidistant from one another, it comes out to about 18,000 miles. for the shortest path, or the same path on a flat disk, which is over 14 hours, like a 14-hour time length,
Man, it's
gets you
just
to about 1,300 miles per hour,
Sir Aardvark,
which
no
is...
offense, but you cut me off in the middle of addressing something and to go on
Oh, sorry.
on a monologue
Yeah, sorry. No,
of the thing
yeah,
that we already know.
sorry.
The problem with the whole claim is that there's a ton of assumptions with the claim. Like, I get that you're claiming that there's an aircraft that the time was going to debunk the flat Earth. Even if I gave that to you on its face, right? How do we know even that the flight is taking the actual path that they're claiming to take? Who has even
So
actually gone to verify this flight
sorry.
path?
So I chose this specific flight for that specific reason. The shortest path on a flat disk, if like just using pretty like
Let's see if he
using the
answers
flat
it
disk that I
specifically.
used, but using any flat disk, because of just the nature of having that circle being wider, the flight path I can present this. I'm gonna have to rejoin on my computer
No,
if
but
I do. But
Art Direct, you're missing it. I
the
was asking
no,
if a real person.
I understand you're asking me to prove that they take the flight path, which is what I'm getting to. The flight path, the shortest flight path on a flat disk goes over, so it starts in Johannesburg, or depending on which direction you're going, starts in Johannesburg. They claim it goes almost immediately out into the ocean off the coast of South Africa, goes all the way around the southern hemisphere, and then doesn't ever see land. There's always ocean underneath it until it reaches the very southern, or I think it's southwestern or southeastern tip of Australia, which it comes on to or like it goes over land and then lands in Sydney. On a flat disk, it would start in Johannesburg the same way, but it would go almost entirely over South Africa. It would go over the Middle East. It would go over a large part of South Asia. It would go over the Philippines, and then it would start it would go over land in Australia and the northeastern part of Australia. So there's a very different scenery that you would see on the globe. The path that they claim they take is almost
Ugh.
always over water. On a flat Earth, the path that they would have to take that is the shortest route, that
You're saying it
maybe they're
again.
faking it, would go over so much land that it would be completely different.
Well, you're saying that
So it'd
same
be
point
easy to tell that
again.
they're going on a different path.
Please don't circle it again and say it a third time. What I was asking for is verification, right? So what you did was you added more details. I was asking for the verification that real people have booked, taken this flight, and now you're adding a claim that there is water underneath it the whole time. Go ahead and provide the video, please.
Okay, I can look up a video of it. I mean, you can take the flight, you can book this flight.
Everybody says that
you-
you can just take the flight, but I've actually tried to book a few of these flights, and it was either unavailable or you could book it and then it would get refunded before the trip actually happened. So, and I'm not the only one who's had this experience. Again, anybody can just claim that a flight exists. Verify that the flight exists, please, and then we can talk about it.
Okay, that's
Give me
fair.
a second.
I will try to
Some
research
guy
that.
in the world.
Okay.
Are you supposed? Can you raise your hand again so we can bring you up? I think this is the Glober.
Is
One
that-
of the other Globers.
How many do we have? We have 4? Okay.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna have 4. So
I can invite him up. The Caliber's not here no more.
Some guy in the world. Can you raise your hand again?
oh, cool. He's here.
We got him. Who else? Who else we need?
He's up.
I don't think the other showed up yet.
Okay. Carry on.
Well, I'll look into that. I'll definitely try to find a flight. I don't have.
Some
I
guy
just
in the world.
don't have.
Are you there? You have a mic?
Brenda debates is most certainly not in the debate.
My audience would cry if you brought them up.
I know. I was voting heavily in that stream for you, dude. I was like, no, sorry.
I don't know if his mic is working right now.
And he might not be the guy. Why did you raise your hand?
He was in the chat, and he said he could try and make it, but he was on his laptop. So
I mean, if plane routes were really the thing that was going to get brought up, and people should be aware that there is a book called Shane, help me out with this. What was the name of the book called? Details 16 different flight paths that make complete
Yeah, well, it's
sense.
16 emergency landings that prove flat Earth. That is 5 flat Earth. Banjo, I have the book here. I've been quoting it and putting pictures in the chat here. Just throw the whole PDF so we can all have it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
another thing, real quick, with the commercial flights and the airspeed and breaking the sound barrier. So these air currents back here, they all change at different altitudes and different, they go in different directions and different speeds and stuff. And the publicly available, what we have available to us, they can add to the speed of the plane. Like if it broke that wouldn't break the sound barrier in the way that you think it would. So they could do that, get more speed, and like they wouldn't know it. Their machines, would account for it. And the pilots themselves wouldn't know it, right? So it would all be read through the machines and accounted for through computers, which is how they run the whole system, right? So it would just adjust accordingly to make the flights all work out. They just catch different air currents. That's how all of the flights work. That's why when flights are delayed and they take off, 15, 20 minutes late, they still get to their location on time. They just adjust automatically at an altitude where they can catch an air, a jet stream that will, make up the difference in time that's needed. That's how it all works. So even if they did take that flight and it was like semi-proportional or whatever, just because they could take a slightly longer distance and be going faster and not know it and see water, the whole time and think that that they took the same route, but they wouldn't even know really. And you got to look into problems with tracking planes in the south with GPS and stuff. They have this like off-grid situation where they do this like ping to ping back and forth, and like it's not a constant reading. So like who knows what they do and what they how it could be laid out, and if they're utilizing jet streams that we don't have access to, because the altitude readings that you can publicly get, Globebusters did this. They downloaded the app. I forget what it's called, but it's the one that all the pilots use to get the altitudes to do their flight path planning. And the even the altitudes that they say that they'll give you, the highest publicly available data, they don't even give it to you at the altitudes that they say that they promise. I forget what it is. I think it was like 48,000 feet or something like that. They don't even give that. So what's actually available and how it all works behind the scenes with the computers and stuff like that, like it would just all work itself out, and we wouldn't know. Everything would conform to the globular nature. Like obviously they're not going to be stupid enough to have a flight path so disproportional that it just completely body bags the globe like that. Now it's where you get into these emergency landing situations where it reveals that it's like, oh well, on a globe they actually would have been in this spot, or why would they have to cross back into to the northern hemisphere? That kind of stuff. You get into these weird inconsistencies. So that's all I have to say about that.
I'd also add on, Alan, while we're in the process of dismantling the globe with flight paths, I would also add in that we do have a glober that had a real world demonstration, really, a flight that was taken from Sydney to Johannesburg. Now, what's interesting about this was Max Egan actually took his compass on this flight, and the compass heading showed exactly what would be expected that compass heading to show on a flat Earth projection, and it did not match up at all with the globe Earth projection. Now, there was a ad hoc BS excuse added for this. They claimed that, oh, well, the metal of the plane threw off the magnet. But if that were true, why would it throw off the magnet just in the specifically right way that would make it appear to be on the flat Earth? So not only do we have it in books published, there's some published works for you, but we also have a real-world demonstration. Do you have a real-world demonstration verifying, any of the flight paths that supposedly prove the globe?
Well, first, I'm just going to adjust some of the points you made because I think that there's at least some errors. Alan, I just wanted to ask, what are the speeds of those wind, or like what would be an approximate speed of that wind? Because
the maximum
the
one that they
distance.
get to is like 250 miles per hour, I think, for
But
the
like
publicly available
Okay, because what I
stuff that
was
you can
going
see.
to ask is like the distance, at least on the projection that I'm using, again, doesn't have to be exact. It's about a 12,000 mile difference. So these winds, in order to correctly like alter the flight path where they would be 14 hours, even if they were taking these wind currents, these wind speeds would have to be thousands of miles an hour. Also,
Yeah,
or
I
at least I
mean,
think close to 1,000 miles an hour.
Not true.
Secondly, they go in one direction, but the flight goes both directions. And I'm still gonna like we don't have to keep on this flight point because I know that I don't actively have a video of it. But once I find it, we can return to it. But those jet streams go in one direction, and the flight goes or it claims to follow the exact same path both directions. So how would those jet streams at all explain that?
there's ones that change at different altitudes, as you can see. It's not.
So there's different
They're all
wind
one-
speeds going at
yeah.
different altitudes. So like one is going one direction and then you go up a couple hundred feet and then it starts going the other direction.
It would be going different speeds.
Well, yeah, no, I understand that. What I'm saying is like at least on this flight path again, the ground below you would tell you what flight path you're taking. So if I can find a video of the flight, that'll show that.
So do
But
you not
I-
see that like it's going in different directions though at different altitudes? So like
Well-
it's totally possible to make the corrections either way.
So the flight or the current wind speeds or the current wind direction on the outside of this circle right now are counterclockwise. Is there any that go clockwise at the exact same speed or close to the same speed? Because this flight follows
With the
this
wheels
path both clockwise and counterclockwise around a flat disk. So these wind speeds would have to go in both directions the exact same or almost the exact same speed, close enough to where the flight time is a negligible difference.
But why are we
All
still
your
And-
flight paths are belong to us, though.
why are we still having to try to why are we still having to verify how this flight path would work when we haven't even verified the flight?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how it would work on a flat disk. If I can verify the flight, then I can show it to you. We can move off to it if move off of it if you don't like
Well,
if
we're
you're unconvinced. But and I
Well-
completely understand that. It's just this. I don't think that this would work on a flat Earth. That's why I'm
I mean,
bringing it up
we're
because if I
we're
can
like-
prove that this flight really does just head over the ocean, then if you can't explain how it does that and the amount of time that it does it, I don't see how that would work with a flat Earth.
Dude, we're way off in the weeds. Maybe we could start at the basic beginning. Do you know anyone who's proved the radius of the spherical Earth that you're trying to propose? Any any experiment or any person who's measured the actual radius of Earth?
I know a way to measure the radius of the Earth, if that's what you're asking. Are you asking for an experiment? Because
Do you know
there's
who-
different
who
ways
implement-
to measure the radius of the Earth, but I don't really know why that's relevant. I understand that there's certain things that require the radius, but that we don't need the exact radius to prove it's round. That's just
Well, all right. So the way it breaks down, dude. Honestly, we're in flight paths as a start. It's kind of weird. We probably should start at the very beginning, where once you declare radius of 3959, right? That amount, that sphericity, that radius demands that it curves to 8 inches per mile squared, and we have all sorts of observations that disprove this amount all across the world. And then we're now arguing about how you think this would work in the air. We haven't even covered the ground, man. The whole crux of our movement is basically right that the Earth does not curve at that necessitated rate ever.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have a bunch of stuff about we can see this thing that we shouldn't be able to see. The argument, well, so number one, you do know the mathematical, what 8 inches per mile squared is. It's a parabolic curve, which means it's not spherical, and
Oh my
I
god.
would assume that you know that.
Yeah,
But that means that it doesn't fully
course.
curve.
but
It's
it's
a
accurate
parabolic
up to
curve.
thousands of miles. So
It is accurate to a certain distance. However, there are a couple of things you need to take into account when doing
It's
this.
accurate to 3,000
Number
miles
one-
up to a foot, brother. So within
Well,
1,000 miles observations, it's
you're correct. It
dead-ass
is
accurate to
accurate to a
any you
certain.
could come up with for a globe.
Well, you're correct. It is accurate to a certain point. I'm just pointing out that it's not.
It's
Why we-
it's
it's
okay.
not
Why even point out that
completely
it's not accurate to a certain point when you don't know what that
secondly,
point
that
is?
you have to calculate observer height, and thirdly, you have to calculate atmospheric refraction from the atmosphere, from the amount of humidity in the air, because of the way light bends. Because of when light passes through different media or different densities of, different fluids of different
So painful.
densities, it curves. So I have a calculator that includes all of this. It uses the actual equation for a sphere, it can calculate, or if you give it the humidity, it can calculate the bend of light. So, and it also uses observer height. So if you have any of these, like we see this thing that we shouldn't be able to see, if you have any of these exact things with like the actual measurements, I would love to show you that they are perfectly okay.
The backwards compatible law of the heliocentric model. Yeah, the observer height backwards refraction coefficient that you need to make any observation on the Earth totally fine, only needing to invoke a sphere of infinite radius to make light bend nearly around to see your own ass. That's the argument that you just outlined, by the way.
Well, if we like on a sphere, light, or because there's different densities of air on this sphere, at least that's what it's claimed to be, there is different densities of air as you go up, but because it curves, it means light going straight out will go through all of these things, meaning that it will bend as it goes through that.
Why is
Like that is how that would work.
I'm just
so again, I'm perfectly fine if you want to bring up any of these arguments, because I can show you that they work fine.
Sir Aardvark, I'm confused on why you try to be like, well, you bring up this argument, but you make these assertions that the math works out perfectly, but you don't do the math.
Well, I mean,
you tell us
we can do the math. Like this shows the math. So if you wanted to look at the math, I can show you the math. Like the actual radius of a sphere uses trigonometry, and then
So
you
how
have
would
to
you
calculate
falsify-
observer height, which is just tangential.
how would you
What?
falsify, Sir Aardvark, the curvature claim, being that there is now an unfalsifiable mechanic via refraction introduced?
What do you mean unfalsifiable?
I'm
Like-
asking the question, how do you falsify the globe claim? How would you falsify it?
You would show something that is, with these calculations, is impossible to see.
Are you using the Walter Bislin calculator? Can you show me the calculator?
I am,
Which
yes.
one's the one that does all this? Okay,
I am
show me
as well.
what your refraction index is to produce observations that fit everything.
Well, I don't know what I don't know what thing you're trying to show, because you have to.
Here. Can you present? Just share
I'm
screen.
not on my computer, so I'm on my phone talking, and then I have it pulled up on my computer. I can switch if you really want, but
Yeah, do it. Because let's look at the refractive index required to produce the effects that's going to necessitate globularity. When you realize that the highest refractive index is 2, and your example is going to be like 5, 6.
Would like
it's going to be like
index?
Retarded insane, way over 2, the max, the actual max. Yeah, you're up.
Okay, can you pull up an example?
Observations are run off of a simulation. You're trusting the math from a simulation. No, you do.
No, I'm saying, can you?
It's your example. I already know the answer because I know how to adjust it to make it conform to the globe. I don't have the calculator available to me, but it's in the refraction index. When you adjust that slider, that's what's going to give you
what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to show me something that you don't think we should be able to see on a globe, and then we can plug it into this calculator and we can see what refraction index is required to make it visible. Because you're saying that you're going to have to extrapolate this refraction index.
You have to show the globe.
Okay.
You have to show the globe. That's a reversal of burden. The flat Earth is the negative claim. We're saying that we don't believe in the curve. We don't measure the curve. You're saying there is a consistent measurement of curvature.
Yep.
Please provide that.
Do you just want me to show the calculator? Is that what you're asking? Because I can just plug the link in. I'll still switch to my computer if you really want, but I can just give the link to everyone so they can publicly view it.
So the mainstream public opinion is that due to atmospheric conditions and refraction, that the horizon is going to be a apparent horizon that's always changing based on the conditions. So you do not have a blanket set that you can apply to all observations to say they all work on the globe. You have to ad hoc it, therefore making the globe unfalsifiable, which is why I brought up this point. Things that are unfalsifiable are by definition pseudoscience.
Well, of course, yeah, but they are falsifiable. So the thing is, the refraction index, which is what I believe you have a problem with here, it isn't just like magic. It's not just like a magic number we can plug in. It actually has to do with humidity. Like, we can't just like create a magic number and say, oh, it works. We have to actually look at the humidity in the air and then calculate the refraction index. It's not just some magic number we can plug in.
Do you even know how the refractive index was derived?
Well, depends on what like what the humidity is. I don't know like the exact math on it. Again, this calculator provides it, so I could look into it.
Yeah, you should go ahead and look into it.
Okay. Do you still want me to pull up the calculator and we can go over this? I have another thing that I think this proves the
The calculator
Earth.
just proves my point that it's an unfalsifiable position, so we can move on.
Okay. I still don't think it is, but that's fine. I posted for everyone watching. I posted the link to it into the chat. So if anyone wants to check it out and check the math themselves, I'm gonna do it myself in a bit. But if they just want to check it out, the second claim, I actually will switch to my computer for this one because the presentation really helps with it. So just a second. Also, the other people who are arguing for the globe could also debate because.
Well, we could, definitely hear from some other people. Although Aardvark, so far, dude, you're really chill. I'm glad you're here, even though you're fighting us hard. I'm glad that we have someone to argue with. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that you guys are very respectful because I've debated with flat earthers before I've debated with a lot of people who are also they're very interrogative. So I'm glad you guys are very just respectful. So thank you for that. But yeah, if someone else actually wants to talk, because I'm kind of tired of hearing my own voice.
Could someone throw our Black Swan memes in the chat for us? I'm feeling kind of lazy and I don't have them on me. I know someone's got them. We can stick to that if we're going to talk about refraction and nonsense.
It just fails the basic logic claim. You know, the positive claim is that the Earth is a radius of 3,959 miles, which means that you should be able to verify that demonstrably. But whenever you go to check the measurements, you see that it's always changing, it's always varying. And yes, you can create a sliding refraction scale to explain away any observation that may challenge the conception of the globe. But is that really science to just add in a number?
Well, like what we keep saying it makes it unfalsifiable, but I'm not sure that people who employ it actually are fully cognizant of what they're doing. Like we can make any observation across, say, 700 miles, and there would be a totally mathematically perfect coefficient you could plug in to make the refraction yield that actually it makes perfect sense on a ball. But to do that, you've increased the radius of Earth to such a ridiculous extent as to make it near infinite. Right? So the refraction index that we're invoking is just changing the radius of the supposed Earth to make the observation make sense, and it's almost infallible. We have a good globe proponent, Ruhif, who will invoke refraction for an infinite radius anywhere near the Earth's surface. He said it's not useful to argue any distance ground-based observation with him because he'll invoke a near infinite radius, and he's totally right. What sense is it to argue with that? Who are the other globe proponents? Do we have some guy? Do you speak some guy?
He doesn't have a mic.
Are we just here to crush Aardvark?
We're just not here. Nah, the other two didn't show up.
Like
This
a-
guy doesn't have
it
a
feels
mic.
kind of like a
Yeah,
dog pile.
Aardvark said that he has to restart his computer, so
I feel bad.
Cool.
I guess while we wait, Schizo, do you wanna
Like I
open
was
up for a Q&A session?
I was going
Or
super
till he
hard
comes back?
thinking that he had backup.
Word.
You can
Yeah,
start playing
it is felt like
Steve.
I'm kind of going 3v or 1v. I don't actually
I
know if
would've-
there's 3 or 4 of you in here, but
I would avoid bringing up that Brenda debates person. It's not a.
Oh no, she's
genuine
definitely
person.
not allowed. Dude, she's just trolling.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
All right.
oh my freaking tab's closed. Wonderful.
Brenda's a glowy troll. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
The FBI is here, boys. Anyways, Fridge, do you want to open up for just a Q&A session for?
Start people.
All right. I mean, you are the head, so it's your decision.
Do we
I
have
don't
questions?
have the powers.
Oh, I do.
All right, so
I'm just here to help.
I think
all right, so
Halbert.
I guess we'll just do.
spot me.
So we'll get King Clown here, and he can ask your question.
My audience is wondering what Discord server this is. If you guys want to shout yourselves out.
Yeah, so this is the political debate server. It's a
Oh, we should.
it's a based server, man.
Pretty good
Yeah,
server.
I'll pop the link in your chat, Tribune.
Oh,
Thanks.
cool. Thank you. That's good
Well,
promotion.
Rockfin anyway.
Anyways, yeah. So I think I'll just open this up for Q&A. So, all right. So let's start off with King Clown here.
He's a flat earther. He's gonna be on our side if you want to do that.
What about Mimesis?
Yeah, we'll do it one at a
This
time.
Hey guys,
Hey man,
how's it going?
welcome.
So, I have some questions for the panel. Flat Earthers. Now,
Go on.
question: does the sky orbit the ground, or does the ground orbit the sky?
Define orbit.
Well, I think about it like a
Loaded
racetrack.
question.
This stuff goes around up above us. We stand and kind of watch it all happen. Like, we know the sun traverses the sky from east to west. But like, are we moving too in the entire thing?
Yeah, do we spin backwards 1,000 miles per hour, creating the illusion of the sky moving and sunsets?
Jeez, when you say it like that, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Oh, Aardvark's back, but not streaming. Looks like you're on like
Yeah,
7.
that was my question exactly. Yeah, thank you for answering, Tribune. Appreciate the transparent answer.
Absolutely.
So we'll get the next person in here.
It's important to
Tactical
give.
Droid.
Do you want Bob or Mimesis?
Oh, we can do it one at a time. Oh, I can't for some reason can't get Tactical Droid here. So just put your hands up again, Tactical Droid, and we'll just go to the next person here. So Mimesis. Bro, I can't let anyone join. What the
Boo. People in my audience over on YouTube and Rockfin, feel free to fire some questions as well. I'll be happy to ask them on your behalf. I am your ambassador here in the political Discord server.
Mimesis is a troll, but you can bring
What?
I'm not able to add them for some reason. There's oh, here's Mimesis. Yeah.
Hey there, how you doing?
Man,
How's everybody doing?
We're doing
Good, my man. How are you?
doing fantastic.
Doing well. I just wanted to say, do we all remember that time flat earthers spent $20,000 on a laser gyroscope to prove that the Earth was flat, and they confirmed that it was indeed not flat, and it was indeed rotating.
Do you remember that time that all
Would you
the
like to go
Globers-
into
Do you remember that time all the Globers forgot the?
no,
the
I
actual-
got this. Would you like to go into explicit detail on this?
No, not at all. Just I think it's real funny. That's all I had to say.
yeah, I get you, dude. I mean, it's funny that the people don't know the first thing about interferometry and make statements like that. But to be honest, the people up here now probably know more about that experiment, interferometry, the Sagnac effect, the measurements taken, and the whole process than anyone you've ever spoken to. But it's all good. We can move on.
All right, so let's do Tactical Droid now. Hope you can finally join. I invited you to speak there, Tactical Droid. Just accept it.
Alan almost flexed. He was
Yeah,
like, "I
for
got
any-
it. No, hold me back. Hold
No.
me back."
Dog.
Everybody
Oh,
wants it.
dude.
Everybody knows it's a slam dunk, dude. The guy who literally dubbed the.
They don't
Sagnac
even
effect.
know, bro.
They-
It's just out there waiting.
It was literally dubbed to be the rotation of the ether from the guy who invented it.
Tactical Droid. Can you accept my request to join? Because you can join after. You can once you accept.
You can keep bringing up flat earthers, but he's another one of us. He's our bud.
Oh, he's one of you, is he?
The effect self falsifies the interpretation of light, in which they use to, interpret everything. It's crazy, dog. Like the device wouldn't even work if their interpretation of light was right. They have to make all these mathematical corrections to general relativity to fix it and say that quote unquote general relativity predicts it, or I'm sorry, that it's predicted by special relativity. Let's let's take a look at the postulates of special relativity. The first postulate is that all reference frames are equal and valid from the same perspective. So physics will be the same in all perspectives. So the speed of light will be the same in all perspectives. Now, the second postulate is that the speed of light will be the same speed in a vacuum always, no matter what. It will be unchanging.
Seems Tactical Droid is not accepting my thing, so I guess we'll move on to Bob. So, Bob, make sure you accept the thing there, and then you can speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Fine and
Oh.
fun, fine and well.
Cool. So anyway, Staniak effect shows that the speed of light is varying, and it also references an absolute reference frame to make that measurement. It shows that there's a preferred directional speed of light, that the speed of light traveling clockwise, with the rotation of the Earth, supposed, is the preferred directional speed of light, which causes the fringe pattern. So to say that special relativity predicted that effect would be retarded. So once you start to understand these actual effects and what these devices are, and the interpretational framework upon which is used to interpret the results of the device, you realize that device doesn't know if the Earth is spinning or if the sky's spinning. And when you understand how they made,
Brody, we have another question here from Mr. Bob here. So, fire away, Bob.
Okay.
Do you believe in gravity?
Ooh, we all have answers for this. Who wants to go?
Define gravity.
I got a pretty good one.
I guess maybe in the general relativity sense of curvature of space-time causing objects kind of sort of collide together and stuff.
Do I believe in the bending of a hypothetical concept like time and the concept of space? No, I don't believe in that.
Yeah, that sounds silly. I mean, we do believe in a measured, agreed upon average downward acceleration measured all across Earth that varies slightly. We just disagree vastly on the supposed causation of it, which you don't have any sort of causation that, big things attract little things and mass attracts mass. But we do have causation for like electromagnetism, as the general voltage gradient in the atmosphere shows. It's 100 volts per meter, and then we interpreted that we're between two Gaussian surfaces that induces, we have the only way to have the voltage gradient and the current is to have two Gaussian surfaces. And we simply interpret that voltage gradient determines the downward vector of down, and that density, buoyancy, and viscosity sort everything else out.
Welcome to Flat Earth.
So you're saying that, like, it's the same thing as being pulled down by gravity as falling, but you believe that the Earth is pulling up, so we stay on it, like flowing through the. So then, how would you explain that we don't jump off and die? I guess.
What the hell? What are you even talking about?
Did you just
What I'm trying to ask is,
accelerating disk?
what do you believe? So you believe in acceleration?
Okay, so we have I'll lay this out very clearly. So typically, in order to verify something, you want to try to ascertain a cause and effect relationship by creating a variable and having a control. So when we're dealing with the acceleration downward that we all agree upon, right? There's this average 9.8 meters per
8
second
meters
square,
squared.
whatever. Yeah, whatever the heck it is, doesn't matter. We have this known drop, right?
9.87.
Okay, so we have this known drop. Now I'm going to propose a hypothesis. I hypothesize that this drop is due to the change in charge between the two objects, between the very negatively charged Earth and the relatively neutrally charged object. So to demonstrate this, we would have the object in question, like let's say we have a neutrally charged helium balloon. Then we have a Van de Graaff generator. This will be our variable, because we can adjust it. And then we can see that by adding a charge to the balloon or taking a charge away, you can actually adjust the vector, the downward vector, meaning you can make the balloon rise up higher, or you can make the balloon sink down to the ground, depending on if you charge it or decharge it. So there you have a direct relationship being shown So I hypothesize that the downward vector has something to do with electricity.
So
So
if I charge my
Bruce, there-
phone, it will be lighter than if it's not charged.
that's it. Shane, I just wanted to point out, so that would entail that things that are more positively charged are heavier, while things that are more negatively charged are lighter, because if the Earth is extremely negative and other things are positive, well, I mean, as you said, opposites attract. So more positive things would be drawn towards the Earth with greater force.
Admittedly, Sir
Meaning-
Aardvark, denser things do have more
So-
charge. There's more force between the atoms, creating more density, which is allowing it to fall harder, faster, be denser. Is actually due to the more force, more charge in the atoms. So yes,
Well,
So if I drop a
so-
bowling ball and like I guess a key, it should hit the ground at different times if I drop it from the exact same height at the exact same time.
the reason why it's relatively the same and it isn't average is because the charge from the Earth, right, is so great. That is the base differential. So everything else is going to be rather minuscule in comparison to that. Same explanation with gravity, by the way. You say the mass of the Earth is so great that the mass of the other objects doesn't really mean anything. So it's pretty much the same exact explanation.
So then why would you have a difference if it's the same exact explanation?
Because we can actually manipulate the variable to show the cause and effect relationship. Can you do that with gravity?
Very good point. Never
I'd
been
say
demonstrated.
yes.
Yeah, but no one's ever done it. So you could do it and be the first to like win a prize.
And then if I do
just
do
wanted-
it
I
and
just
then
wanted to ask,
prove
since
you guys
because
wrong,
Shane, I just wanted to ask,
Absolutely.
because you made the claim that this does happen, could you just show an experiment for it? Because I have something to say about it, but could you show an experiment for it if you've
There's-
performed it or if you've seen it performed?
I haven't performed it, but Witsit performed it in the most recent Level movie, Level with Me, and David Weiss performed it and goes on everyone's show and does it. There's clips all over YouTube, all over the internet, of people using a Van de Graaff generator to manipulate charge of lightweight objects like human hair, wood, iron filings, to make them change their downward vector that we've attributed to the electromagnetic vector. They've changed it from down to up, making things go up. So they change the charge, it goes up. They change the charge again, it goes down. Those videos are definitely out there. We can probably find a clip if you want.
Not only that, but you can
so
look
you
up,
mean like
you can look up the anomalous data that has to do with dropping things in vacuum chambers and how fall rates seem to change during electric storms.
so like do you mean like when someone touches the ball and then their hair goes up in the sky? Is that what you're talking about?
That's static
Speak up.
electricity? Yes, that is a form of it.
Okay. Are you sure that's just not because
Specifically, what we're
so you're
dealing with
saying
is specifically the term that you want to look up would be incoherent dielectric acceleration.
incoherent dielectric acceleration, that's what it's called.
Right.
Okay.
Is that your question, Bob?
I guess I asked
Yeah.
a lot of questions, but that was one of the main ones. So do I
Yeah.
leave or what?
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly fine if you've finished asking your question and you got an answer from it, because we can go to the next
Okay.
one now.
Alright, sorry. I didn't mean to take so long.
No, you're fine.
Manskin,
so-
I do have my presentation ready for the point that I was going to make.
Yeah, we
so-
kind of have like 3 more questions if you could just wait for.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just
Yeah.
going to let you know.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah.
seems King Clown is back.
I
so
know
let's ask
Brenda
him.
had wanted to get up, and they seem like they're good enough.
I'll consider it.
Nobody wants to talk to Brenda.
I mean, everyone in the chat is chanting Brenda, Brenda, Brenda.
I think that they'd be fine.
Hey,
I don't
you
think.
can bring them up, but you'll regret it.
By the way, real quick, Shane, would you mind actually dropping that link? I have several people wanting to check out the Discord server.
Oh yeah, right. I got you.
So, King Clown, if you can just accept my invitation to speak there, you can join.
So, Shane, my one question was, could you do something like, because of your explanation of this, could you take like a more positively charged, because you said you've done it with lighter objects, which are much more, they're like what we consider gravity is weaker on them. So could you take something, a heavy object, like I think Bob mentioned, like a bowling ball, And could we take like maybe a very positively charged bowling ball and then like a neutral charged bowling ball, and can we put them on a scale and see, because you say that the reason things fall down at the rate in which they do is because of a higher like electrical charge being attracted to the earth. So like following on to that, the more positively charged bowling ball should weigh more because it
that's
has a
not
more
exactly-
powerful force pulling it down.
That's not exactly the argument, right? I'm not saying that the differential charge doesn't do anything. I'm not even claiming that it's electromagnetic. What it is electrostatic in nature. So it's no charge, right? So we're not talking about differential charge. We're talking about no charge. And all that's doing is performing the non-zero downward vector. So even if it's like 0.0001 of whatever measurement of force you want to use, that determines the downward vector. That's enough for density and buoyancy and viscosity to do the majority of the so-called work to make objects go down. So the precipitous questions like changing the charge, that's a silly straw man. That's not the argument. There's another one that's like, oh well, then we put humans in a Van de Graaff generator and they'll float. That's also similarly retarded because you're still much less dense, just much more dense than the air around you. You haven't changed anything. The amount of charge it would take to levitate a human would evaporate the human far quicker than you actually levitate.
Shane, I hate to interrupt, but I will
what-
just say what you're suggesting has actually already been done. I mean, surely we could agree that the balloon that was charged, that was able to rise up, had less weight than the one that was being pulled more towards the Earth. So yes, by altering the charge with a Van de Graaff generator, you do alter the vector. I mean, this has been demonstrated. We don't need to dance around it.
Yeah, I understand that. So what I'm saying is, because you're altering a vector there. A vector is a force with a direction. But
No, we
that
don't
means
alter.
that
No, we don't alter the vector. We alter the charge, and the vector changes. Effectively,
yes. So
the
what I'm
weight,
saying, so that
would
means
mean
that there's a direct correlation between the charge and the vector, is what you're claiming.
right.
So because there's a direct correlation, changing the charge changes the vector. That's what I meant by changing the vector. I didn't mean like directly like
Yeah, so
picking it
this
up
has
and
been
pulling it more.
this has
But
been demonstrated.
so, but what I'm asking you is for a heavy object, because lighter objects
Heavy
are much more
objects
prone.
require much more charge, and unfortunately, the matter can only
So,
take so
but
much.
if you
Can
let
only
me
hold on,
finish,
let me
the
finish. The
charge,
charge can only
like
take.
electro,
There's gonna be other things that happen.
like a vector is, as you said, it's a force with a direction, and because altering the electrostatic alters that vector, that means you're still changing the amount of force that is applied to it, even if it's like, because obviously changing a vector means you're either changing the direction or you're changing the force.
The problem with the
So
bowling ball is
adding more charge to something would still increase the vector, because that's how the measurement works. If there is any force, if there's any attraction between two objects due to their electromagnetic charge, then increasing that attraction will increase the force.
There's a
That's
huge
just
thing
how
being
force
missed, though.
works.
There's a huge thing being missed, Sir Aardvark, and that is that different objects can't take the same amount of charge, right? It's just not able to happen. Changing the vector is not the only thing that happens when you add electricity or add a charge or take a charge away, right? So there's also
So then there must be something that is counteracting that charge equally if there's no difference between that. So
That's not
what
what I
would that
said.
be?
That's not what I said.
Well, you said that when you alter the electrostatic charge, you don't just alter the vector. However, you do still alter
Here's
the
a
vector.
simpler.
You're claiming that
Aardvark,
it's
let me
not
finish.
just the vector.
Here's a
that you
simpler
change.
way. Here's a simpler way to get you to understand. How would you get the bowling ball to hold the charge?
You could put a magnet, or you could put a object that's heavily charged inside of it, which would pull it down.
Well, now we're not dealing with just a charged bowling ball, are we? We're dealing with something with different mass. We're adding different objects to it. How do you just change the charge?
But it would still be heavier. We don't have to use a
Sir
bowling ball.
Aardvark,
We can use something that
we're talking about
holds electric charge.
We're talking about isolating the variable. How do we just change the charge of something like a bowling ball?
Or even just like
So
just
Can I ask a question?
the charge of the
guys, just a second.
Oh, yeah,
Carvo
sorry.
actually has a question for you guys.
Yeah, well, we
Carvo,
can continue this after.
go
Yeah.
to.
This is for the flat earthers. Do you guys have a model
Yeah, the military uses a flat Earth model for several things. There's like over 40 of them.
No, they don't. I mean a working, functional model that can explain several phenomena at one time, that can also make predictions.
You
Not
guys
just a
don't have
picture
that.
of the Earth, but flat.
Well, you guys don't have that, so that's an unfair burden, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, we
No,
do have that. I can explain it, but
do have that.
this is
We
fine.
we objectively have that.
We objectively
We have
don't,
a
but go
model
on.
that explains every phenomenon that we observe.
No,
not
you have
true.
multiple models that you think explain everything cohesively together. You have the geodynamo model, you have the tidal model, you have electromagnetic model. Dude, all those models are independent. You don't have any one working model that explains all phenomenon. That's crazy.
No, not obviously. I don't mean every single phenomenon that we can observe regarding everything. I mean regarding the Earth, its orbit, its rotation. We have a model for that, and it perfectly explains several phenomena like the sunset, the sunrise, the seasons.
Well, it doesn't though, right?
etc.
Like what you
But
have
it
is the
does.
Masonic cycle repeated, and then you have invoked Newtonian physics that invoke things like the three-body problem, where you can't actually predict the gravitational influence of three or more bodies on a system, let alone 7 or hundreds of millions. So I'm not sure you understand what you're talking about, man.
Yeah, your model actually does not work. You actually have separate wobbles going on simultaneously. You have the precession of the equinox, while simultaneously you have the Chandler's wobble. How do you have effectively two different precessions superimposed on top of each other? How do you demonstrate that?
I'm not sure.
Why would you claim to have a perfect working model when you haven't done the research into it to know all the different phenomena that is still unexplained by mainstream science to this day?
Because the model that most people accept explains a lot of phenomena. If there are a couple that are unexplained, we could probably come up with a better model later. That's how science works. You don't have a model, and you don't have a model that can explain multiple phenomena at one time, and that's the problem.
Again, if your model fails to make predictions or doesn't work for another
But it
aspect,
doesn't.
well, that's the
We
thing.
can make predictions.
Hold on.
For instance, we make predictions
You're just
about
going to cut me off when I go
eclipses.
to address your specific point. I can give you a story that explains certain things, but if it fails to explain everything, then it's not a one end all be all
Not a
proof.
story,
And
it's
even if
called
it
doing
did,
math.
and here I'll give you one better. Even if it did explain every single phenomena, it still wouldn't be end all be all proof. Predictions are not scientific evidence. What you need to do is you need to
Yes,
actually
they are. That
you
is
need to create
probably the most empirical form of evidence
no,
you can have. Is a prediction.
no, the most empirical form of evidence would be to have a control and a variable which you can manipulate and then make predictions based off of that. Where was your control and variable when dictating that the things in the sky moving has to be this mainstream narrative that you were spoon-fed, when even astrophysicists admit that there's more models that can explain the observations? You're just unaware of them and making an argument from incredulity.
You're conflating experiments with models. You have a control and a variable in an experiment.
What's more demonstrable, a model or an experiment?
Well, to me, it seems like it depends on what exactly you're observing. For instance, when you're observing like space and stuff, it's kind of hard to do an experiment.
So basically, when it comes to proving out your fairy tale, that's when we can stray away from the scientific method and still call it science?
Yes.
Thanks for playing.
I mean, there's this
Okay, whatever.
misunderstanding that like
But
people make
you didn't